So this is Power of the Marketplace. I'm going to kick this off by having Josh stand up in the back. Josh Yakfeld is the, what is your title exactly? Director of, basically any ISVs in the room, he's the person that can probably help you to get more messaging around your products and his team. And then let's go ahead and have each of the panel members, starting with Mike, introduce yourselves, if you don't mind.
Sure. My name is Mike Levinik. I think I'm a bit of an odd duck up here because I'm the only one on the panel that works for Jamf. I've been with Jamf for about 5 years now, and I wrote an app called the Mutt, also known as the mass update tool. It sounds like you guys have heard of it. It allows for admins to make mass updates to their device records, such as assigning usernames, asset tags, extension attributes, also putting those devices into static groups, or now assigning them to pre-stages, all possible with the mass update tool. It's on the Mac App Store as well as GitHub and hosted at jssmutt.com.
So my name is Willem from Papercut. I traveled from Melbourne, Australia to be here today. So Papercut software is a print management solution. So we make printing easy but secure, and then also focusing on cutting waste. Currently over 100 million users are using Papercut software globally, and I look after our flagship product, Papercut MF and NG.
I'm JJ Parker with Carousel Digital Signage. We make digital signage content management software. All the signage that's been running like on these displays and in the lobby, that's our software. The app runs on Apple TV, and of course we deploy that through Jamf.
Cool. I'm Thomas Steinmetz. I run the US office for EBF. EBF is a managed service provider in the enterprise mobility and security space. And we have developed, among other different service support solutions for our customers, also a tool called the EBF Onboarder, which helps with the migration of devices from on-prem to cloud, Jamf Pro, but also from third-party EMM, MDM systems to Jamf Pro as well.
My name is Alexander Tatachuk. I'm product manager at Setup for Teams. This is subscription-based app store alternative with 160 applications inside.
Awesome. And by the way, Setup, 1 out of 5 Macs has Setup, a Setup app on it, a MacPie app.
Yeah, MacPie.
That's impressive. So if there's about 50 people in the room, then probably 10 of them have Setup, except for the ones who have the Setup shirts. I assume all of them. It's probably required. So some of the panelists actually just asked me to ask a few questions before we get started of the audience. So quick show of hands, who's currently using an on-prem version of Jamf or Jamf Cloud? So on-prem customers, Jamf Cloud customers, customers who are on-prem and planning to move to Jamf Cloud, and then Jamf School customers. Anyone planning to move to Jamf School? And then anyone looking to consolidate multiple instances into one? Couple. And who's built an integration to a Jamf product themselves? And I guess, who's installed an integration that works with Jamf Pro? Sweet. So many of the panelists have solutions that existed or before Jamf or have coexisted with Jamf for a while. We'll start with Alexander. How do you balance the needs of the Jamf community with your existing users?
Okay, so we just launched the product like a month ago for Setup for Teams, and we found that the needs are quite similar at this moment. Everyone's looking for like some kind of tools that could help you to solve your daily needs, like it's project management or coding, and we kind of provide that. It's either with Jamf or either like strictly with the product.
Cool. Anyone else have anything they want to say about that?
Well, we don't have that much experience with Jamf yet. Most of our experience and most of our clients, very heavily in Central Europe, are still on other MDM, EMM, and UEM systems. But we are slowly seeing more and more enterprise customers deploying Jamf, using Jamf for their Mac OS and iOS environment. And I would assume the demands of those customers would be very similar to the ones that we're currently already supporting. So we're very much looking forward to being a Jamf Nation again next year, and hopefully have developed our consulting practice to support more and more Jamf customers as well.
Great. So integrations on the marketplace can potentially open the door to new security risks and privacy concerns. How do you guys deal with the issue of data security and customer info?
So with Mutt, you're passing in credentials for your Jamf Pro environment. You're also passing in your URL. You're passing in everything that somebody would possibly need in order to do some sort of malicious attack on your environment. So conforming to ATS in all ways, and Apple has some really great documentation out there if you're going to develop any sort of app for iOS or Mac OS. It was a little bit easy for me when I went through the App Store process to get it onto the App Store, because they actually do some auditing to make sure that you're following all of their security guidelines and things like that. So looking out for documentation on what's available, ATS and security guidelines are widely available on that kind of stuff. The biggest concern that I have for this app is because it's so powerful, my concern would be of data loss, people basically malforming their CSV, replacing all of their usernames with an asset tag, and causing all of their students to lose Wi-Fi profiles in their apps, and it's kind of a nightmare. But a lot of that just comes down to good documentation and stuff like that as well.
So from our perspective, we're headquartered in Germany, so we have very stringent GDPR requirements that we had to abide by, but also for the comfort of our customers. We have a lot of very large enterprise customers, telecommunication carriers, and banking customers. We also did an ISO certification to meet that. For the purposes of our EBF onboarder to migrate to Jamf Pro, we made sure that within the actual migration, we do not store any end-user data whatsoever. Simply through the migration process, the end-user credentials are just being passed on to the source and target system, so we're not held liable for managing any user-stored data.
All right, so from our end as well, so when it comes to print management, a lot of our customers get it for security, so to prevent data loss as well. So within our company, we have a dedicated security team that whenever there's a new major feature or product that goes out, that from architecture, from the ground up, make sure that from an authentication perspective, from a data encryption perspective, everything is solid. So then when it comes to actually deployment via Jamf, the Jamf part just makes it easy to get onto users' computers and easy to configure. But from a security perspective, like our identity is all encrypted tokens. There is no like username and passwords stored anywhere. So yeah, like just avoid having information. That's the best like way to solve it from the ground up.
Great. So obviously feedback plays a pretty key role into all product development these days. We have multiple product managers on stage, so I assume you want feedback. What systems do you have in place to kind of monitor user satisfaction, and how do you listen to the Jamf community in particular?
Want to start?
Okay, yeah, sure. So a big one for us is measuring NPS, so Net Promoter Score. We're very proud, like even our CEO doesn't even have a financial target, but NPS is one of the targets. So if you want to have a bonus, make your customers happy. At the moment, our NPS is 71, so that's like way up there. So when it comes to getting feedback from customers, we do have a direct support line as well. So from a direct product support to a direct, just like on our website, if you go there, you can chat and so on. And that's actually one of the sources where it was just such a no-brainer to integrate with Jamf, because once we started looking into Jamf a little bit more, we saw like every day there was someone sending in a ticket, and I saw like someone nodding there, or like probably sent in one of those tickets. But every day someone asked like, okay, well, how do I actually use Jamf to deploy secure print queues with Papercut? So we just made it easier.
Yeah, I'd say that collecting feedback, from customers, in like an interview style is important. The other thing that we do in our app, and we make sure it's anonymized, obviously, is collect data feedback. Like, which features are the customers using? When we're rolling out signage, they might intend to roll out 500, but how many did they actually enroll in Jamf? So using the data that we can collect as far as what actual deployments look like has been really like influenced our product management.
Yeah, in our case, we kind of do a mix of all of that, like measure NPS, do surveys, measure data, and conduct interviews. Last year, we did like 50 interviews during the Jamf conference. This year was just a bit less.
That's a lot of interviews. What's the term, Nihito? Nothing important ever happens in the office. I truly believe that, which is why you'll never see me at No, kidding. So let's start with a lesson you learned while building your integration. Does anyone have a fun, like Jamf API or other type of lesson?
Don't hit the API 1,000 times a minute. It doesn't work.
Same. Version 1 of Mutt was completely asynchronous in that if you submitted a sheet of 1,000 records, it just submitted them all immediately to the API. And I was doing testing on a Jamf Cloud instance, and I got a hip chat real quick from some folks upstairs being like, "What the hell are you doing?" So yeah, make sure that you're rate limiting your stuff and things like that. Building Mutt was 100% a learning thing for me. I'm a business major, and just decided, my manager gave me an assignment to start scripting some things, and built some scripts to just update asset tags, and then built those out a bit more, and then I was like, I want to learn Swift. And so yeah, pretty much Mutt has been a 4-year-long nothing but me learning new things every time I open up Xcode.
The thing I learned was learn from your customers as well. So a lot of those tickets we got in from people trying to deploy Papercut and Jamf. In the end, they solved it themselves, like some parts through scripts and so on. So like grab some of that information and then help that to immediately help other customers at least get going, but then also take what they tried to achieve and then productize that and make it just easier to deploy.
In our case, probably the interesting was how we connected the end users who created their accounts within the setup once they get it through Jamf with the actual teams. We came up with a solution to make it seamless. So we put code identifier to the image, and then when someone creates an account in with the setup, it's identified as a part of the team or organization.
Joking aside about the API thing, I'd say like our biggest struggle implementing an integration with Jamf was actually learning how Jamf works. I'm sure you guys are all super experts, but even when it got down to like our engineers needing to implement the integration, getting them, like, they're all very technical, but just what are these things called? Like, what is a profile and a configuration? Like, what is all this stuff? Just like the learning curve of the software was a real struggle for us. So it took a while for us to kind of all the technical team and the product team and understand what things are called and how it's all screwed together in order to get like the end result that we wanted from the integration.
So on that one, so we actually brought in a system administrator into the development team to work like permanently on this project as well. So to do QA testing, but also UA testing. So to make sure that end-to-end documentation, actually deploying it through Jamf, everything works the way that a system administrator would expect it to work.
Oh, that's a good idea. Can I steal that one?
Sweet. One thing I can say on that, I guess, is Sam, you stand up for a sec? Sorry to do that to people. So Sam and another Sam both end up having a lot of calls with various organizations that are looking to build integrations with Jamf. You can sit back down. Everybody saw you. We've been standing a lot. But they're really good at kind of ideating. So if anyone in the room or listening to this video later happens to be looking to build an integration with any of the Jamf portfolio products, then these guys have gotten exceptionally good. In fact, I don't even talk on the calls. I just sit and listen to them at riffing on new ideas to build integrations. And most of them are former Apple admins, so they kind of know have a good beat on what an Apple admin might kind of want out of those integrations. And by the way, anyone can feel free. I've got a list of questions that'll take us through 2 days. Not that I plan on keeping you in the room for that long. But if you feel like coming up to the mics and asking a question, I'll stop asking and kick over to you guys in the audience. So my next question, APIs represent an informal contract. So we test those APIs. Once we publish them, we version them, hopefully moving forward. What kind of testing does your organization do when we have new API updates, or you have API updates that might break our integrations?
Who's got broken integration?
So with the, I forget what version it was, but a fairly recent version of Jamf Pro, with the Jamf Pro API, the newer API, the token authentication one, came the ability to update pre-stage enrollment scope, which was a huge feature request that I had had for years and years. It was one of the biggest things that people wanted to do with Mutt that they couldn't, was add devices in mass to a pre-stage. So I heard that this was coming, I requested beta access, got the beta access, and it basically became a series of testing. How did it work? What were the limitations? How does it work if you try to submit a device that isn't in there? I don't have a QA team, it's just me and one other guy who joined me recently, Ben Whitus, who's been fantastic. But for the most part, it was really just trying to come up with a list of test scenarios, iterating through those test scenarios in my own environment that I'm comfortable breaking that isn't Jamf Cloud, and trying to come up with what are all of the ways that an end user might submit data to this API intentionally or unintentionally, and how can I test against what the ramifications of that are.
So in a lot of cases, we run and host a lot of EMM systems and do similar testing on that. In the case of Jamf, we use a Jamf test instance where we also use various different scenarios to test different devices from the end users and from our own devices as well, to see how the device actually behaves when it migrates from a different source system to Jamf Pro. And then we also use various system tools and checking tools like Veracode in order to verify that the communication is happening the way and that the device is behaving the way it's supposed to be when it's being onboarded onto Jamf Pro.
You go for it.
So at Papercut, we also eat our own dog food. So we're actually using Jamf in production, and then also using that to deploy print queues to everybody. So before we actually push it out to everybody, like we do testing internally as well. So that's just like that one extra level of, we've got confidence that we're not going to put our accounts team, out of like the ability to print a document. So have that measure, and then, from just making sure that we go end to end, do a new deploy, just what a customer would go through from a fresh install or from an update before we push updates on our side. From an integration perspective, also just don't go too tightly integrated. So we got some great advice from Sam as well on how to integrate, so using configuration profiles. So that doesn't really change much. So that's a pretty solid integration as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of API integrations, and we have an older version of our product that's like an on-prem version, and we've got a cloud version. And we've spent decades chasing down API integrations with various things. As their product changes, our product changes, like it's a nightmare. So the nice thing, you know, and kind of when we're talking about cloud and, you know, there's some pros and cons with cloud. The nice thing is if you've got like Jamf Cloud and another cloud product that has an integration, those two products can like iterate, you know, and deploy in a sort of coordinated fashion. So you don't get like broken APIs, right? Because the worst thing is like you got an old version of Jamf and then you want to get the new version of this other partner product, but the API is different and it doesn't work. It's like maintaining API integrations on-prem with legacy software is a giant nightmare. So that's a sales pitch for buy cloud everything. That's just like a benefit of cloud, is that often these integrations are much more solid because you can, the vendors can like coordinate and keep it all up to date.
In setup, we have 5 teams working on the product. Like we show some of them on desktop part, some of them on the backend part. And our team was working on the Jamf integration. So kind of have like different stages of QAs. Like our team took the Jamf part, and then the next team took the bigger overview of the product and did the QA, and then like all the teams did the QA.
So how long are your sprints?
2 weeks.
Is that a global?
You say in general?
In general. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We don't have sprints.
No sprints.
Yeah.
So you're saying like you're always sprinting, constant sprint all the time.
Pretty much. So
How do you engineer then?
So Kanban, and when things are ready to go, we put it in staging and it's ready to get its final test before it goes out, but that doesn't stop the developers from continuing. So when it comes to print deploy, which works really well with like Jamf, like that was our integration that's done there, we deploy up to like 2 times a week as well.
I say for our cloud product, we have a monthly release. We have 3-week sprints, and we have a 1-week, what we call Innovation Week, where the engineers just kind of work on cleanup or whatever side project they want. Then we start a new sprint, 3 weeks, release, Innovation Week, just like that.
Cool. And Mike, you just release whenever you feel like it.
So once Ben joined and we started working together on this, we had to lock it down a little more because it wasn't just me coding on the couch at my in-laws over Thanksgiving anymore. So when he and I started working together, we actually did move to basically 2-week sprints, and then we would meet halfway through the sprint to sort of have just like a melding of the minds and get together on the problems that we were both stuck on. And that worked really well.
So by mentioning that you'll be coding over Thanksgiving, are you promising a forthcoming release over the holidays?
Historically, this is the time of the year when I do most of my work because the office gets a little bit slower and I do a lot of travel. There are a few things that I'd like to button up and polish a little bit, but I think the current version is going to ride for a little while here. It'll just be a little... There's an issue right now where if you update a group and it works, the GUI says it fails, even though it worked, and the log says it works, and just stuff like that I'm going to polish up.
So when looking for platforms to integrate, what advice would you give other ISVs? Maybe even the ones next to you on stage.
Wow. Yeah, our big thing is like when we're trying to partner and integrate with another product, you know, there's like some technical requirements, like can it actually be done and does it make sense and how hard is it? But really the bigger factor for us is like, what is that other company about? What's their culture? Does it kind of like line up with our culture? Does the product offering together make sense? Like, can we co-market and go kind of in as a partnership? Integrations where, for us, that are thinner, that are just like, where maybe like the other company doesn't have much of a partner program, or you know they have an API that they just don't really take seriously. Those ones always go south. So we always look for someone, you know, that's got a mature like partner program and a proper API that maybe they even, like use themselves. Like if their user interface is built off their API, we're pretty comfortable using it. If it's like tacked on, like, oh yeah, we also have an API, it's like kind of like, maybe you will shy away.
So we're more customer driven. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of enterprise customers and telco carrier customers, and we look at what's relevant to them, and we like to stay as much agnostic from any type of platform provider unless that platform becomes relevant to our customers. So we look to integrate with them based on our customers' needs and requests, and also we take a close assessment on what is required to meet all the different certifications in order to partner with that platform provider, and do we have the competencies and the resources in order to provide our consulting and managed services for that specific platform.
Exactly what you said. Plus also what does help is the engagement of that platform provider. So I've worked with other platform providers in the past as well, where the amount of support you get from them is just not there. And long run, it's going to be a problem to get support from them as well. And then also the amount of investment you have to put into that integration just doesn't make sense. With Jamf, it was just immediately, same day, always get a reply. You don't have to struggle to find the right person to get help. So that helped us a lot.
Oh, Charles, follow-up question. Has anyone killed an integration out of their product?
Yeah.
Yes?
Oh,
Yeah?
wait.
Yeah. In addition to all of that said, instead I will start with a few questions like why our users would like to use this product in addition, how they would benefit from this product, and how many users would like to use it. So it's like a starting point to define if we're going to integration or not.
Yeah, I mean, we get that every once in a while. It's like a wild goose chase. A customer will come around the corner and say, hey, I went to this conference. I saw this cool app. This will do this and this. I think you should work with them, and start delivering it to us. And then we cautiously take a step back and say, well, what is it that you're trying to do? What is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And then we step back and say, maybe if you would leverage your platform, your existing platform, and do X, Y, and Z, you can achieve the same result in order to avoid integration with another partner out there.
So yeah, definitely, like the value needs to go both ways. So your product needs to add value to that platform, and then that platform should ideally get value from your product as well, because that will help as well. That they will communicate to their customers that, hey, you know what, there's this thing we don't do and we're not focusing on, but these guys over there do. Same with us, like we're not into MDM tools, so leave that up to Jamf, but then leverage that strength to get our product out there and make deployment easy. The other one is overlapping customers as well. So we have a very similar customer base. So both organizations started in education and then moved into commercial. Similar amount of customers, also similar ratio between education and commercial. So for us, it just makes sense.
So how long have you been integrating with Jamf?
I don't know, a couple years. 3 years or something.
A few months for us.
Like a month.
Like 4 months.
Some of the older ones didn't. Yeah, it's a new crew, except for Mike.
Yeah,
Mike,
about
you're
5
old.
years.
Yeah, you're kind of old hat. And in that time, how many different versions have you potentially shipped, or?
Yeah, so Mutt started just as a single script that updated one attribute, and then I built what I called the dynamic updater, which was basically just a command line version of Mutt that could only update one attribute at a time. Then came out with version 1, which was really just a GUI slapped on top of that. It was hideous. It actually called the curl command in the background using a Swift GUI. Really wasn't proud of it. Version 2 actually used native Swift functionality. 3 got a new UI. 4 got another UI, and then version 5 got the ability to update multiple attributes at a time. So you could update username, full name, email, phone number, all at the same time. And those were all released about a year apart, right around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. with the exception of version 5 came out a few months ago. So there were, minor version releases within there, but really 5 or 6 main iterations of this product as it matured.
So our product is a self-hosted product, so we're not in control in when customers upgrade their instances. So the very first thing we did was, okay, well, let's help current customers with a script that you can download from our site, pop it into Jamf and just fill in the parameters, like, okay, cool, we've got them covered. Now let's go next level and just make it very easy with like a dynamic app that you push out with a config. And then as users move around, and based on who they are and where they're at, print queues just dynamically update. Now that little component, I don't know, I need to go and look on our website, probably more of these this week, but 15 or so in the last couple of months.
So our product was initially called the EBF Migrator, and it was specific for one specific platform provider, and it already gained some notoriety in the marketplace. But then when other platform providers came and approached us and saw the benefits of migrating to their platform, we decided to rebrand it to the EBF Onboarder. We did quite a few iterations to that. We've added more target systems to it, including Jamf Pro, of course, which is very relevant in the marketplace. And we've added a lot of sources as well, some of the less relevant MDM, EMM providers where customers are moving off from. We see that the market in general for EMM and MDM providers is narrowing. There are fewer that are emerging in the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. And we've seen a lot of migrations towards certain platforms like Jamf Pro as well. And with all that activity, there's hardly any white spaces left. There's hardly any enterprise customer that doesn't have an MDM or EMM system deployed. We've received also a lot of feature update requests, different nuances, as we see more and more different devices being migrated and moved from one MDM system to another. So we're constantly doing new updates with the customer engagements that we have.
Yeah, we had like 2 updates. We just released a beta version of Setup for Teams, so the first one, and with second one, we released Jamf support with web UI and client updates just to accommodate all the changes.
Cool. So now for the hardest question, probably. Talking through the future on stage can be hard because you're kind of writing a check that you then end up having to cash potentially. So does anyone want to take us through any future updates to either your tool or your integration with Jamf more specifically?
Yeah, so we do a lot of deployment into K-12, and we're super stoked to start integrating with Jamf School. So that's our next big thing, is working with Jamf to get the Jamf School API to a point where we can integrate our product with that.
Yeah, actually, the Setup for Teams is more B2B faced product, but we're planning to go for EDU product as well later this year.
So from our end, there's still a huge amount of Macs out there or it's a growing trend where Macs are not joining like a local domain. So to leverage the identity we get out of Jamf, that's one potential. Not committing yet to that one. But the other one is also, there's another trend where the network is kind of more seen as like just an open internet. So we're adding to this component that you currently can deploy via Jamf, the ability to print via the internet. So compress a job, encrypt a job, send it via the cloud back into your secure corporate network. So your end users are kind of just seen as on like a untrusted Wi-Fi.
And, oh, go ahead, Thomas.
No, that's okay. So again, the EBF Onboarder is right now only for Jamf Pro as a target, but we are working on Jamf School as the second target to migrate devices from different Jamf products, Jamf Now to Jamf Pro, Jamf Now to Jamf School, and vice versa. So that's one of the feature updates and iterations that we do. I already mentioned several feature updates just in general as customers come along and have different scenarios that we support. from a new product that we're launching at the end of Q1 of next year. It's called Project Unite. This is more looking at the holistic approach of what's going on at the enterprise customer level and the device lifecycle management. So we're looking to integrate in one platform all the different services and devices that are required for an enterprise or business customer to manage all their devices. Is it a leasing program? Is it a financing program? Is it integrating with Apple directly? Is it being able to provision a Jamf client onto those devices, a buyback program, a repair program, whatnot? So that's the next step for us in the near future.
I would say future for Mutt is, honestly, I would hope that it's no longer needed at some point in the future. Inventory preload is a relatively new feature of Jamf Pro that was kind of built to fill sort of the same niche, and once that's a little more fleshed out and can do a lot of the same things, I would love nothing more than to no longer need to provide a third-party app to fill that goal. As far as developing for other platforms, Jamf School has a powerful API that could do the things that we need, but they have something similar to inventory preload. I did receive a feature request to support Cisco Meraki and their API with Mutt. Probably not going to happen, but you never know.
Why probably?
Probably not going to happen, yeah. I don't know, conflict of interest a little bit.
So I guess if you happen to work at a company that makes Kenobi, do you want to wave and say hi? And then if you happen to work, who uses JSS Importer in the room? You should probably, if you don't yet. It's a great tool, and the only two people that raised their hands work for the company that made it, basically. So thank you for that. Does anyone else in the room have something that they've built that they wouldn't mind just getting a quick shout out for? No? Awesome. So what have I not asked you guys that you'd like me to ask? Or would the audience like to hop up and ask any questions?
Could we get a show of hands of who in the audience uses the various products up here?
Sure. Anyone use PaperCut? Nice. I like that. Anyone planning to use PaperCut? Nice. See, that's called lead gen. You should sponsor again next year, just saying. How about Carousel? Now, anyone planning to potentially use Carousel after this? And then, just to continue on the Carousel thing for 2 seconds, who has digital signage going in their environments? So that's called an untapped market, or total addressable market, maybe? And then I guess in terms of migrations, who uses Jamf for your Macs but not your iOS devices? And so that's, I guess, your TAM for moving some of those. And then anyone using SetApp in the room? Anyone using apps in the room? Now, that should have been 100%. Who had fun at the party? That's not a 100%. I'm very confused by this. Wait, are we on in the morning right after the party? Could it be that you're all tired? Well, thank you very much for coming. If anyone wants to chat with any of the panelists, I would say, feel free to stick around. We'll be up here afterwards. And then, thank you. And hope you all had a great JNUC. Welcome to the last day. So, thanks.